Eugenie Sage.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Tēnā koe. As my colleague Jan Logie said, this isn't a budget for all New Zealanders, and it shows how much National has lost touch with everyday New Zealanders. It's building an economy that works for people who already have a lot. And in my comments today, I'd like to focus on the primary sector, because National has really bet the farm on high international prices for dairy continuing, rather than building a diversified and an R&D focused export sector. And what we've seen with the slump in global dairy prices has highlighted the major pitfalls in putting so many bottles in the dairy basket. Because we've seen farmers chasing after those high boom time prices in 2007 and 2013, and we've seen government encouraging that with its very generous subsidies for irrigation in vote our primary industries. And it's encouraging much more intensification, much more irrigation, which leads to less resilience and more vulnerability to changes in world commodity prices. And we see in vote primary industries that some 142 million is allocated in 2015-16 to Crown irrigation investments and the Irrigation Acceleration Fund to subsidise irrigation. And that compares with just 70 million in 2015-16, which is allocated to the Primary Growth Partnership, which is about promoting research and development, product and market development and technology transfer. So what the government is identifying as a priority in the primary industries vote is not what should be the priority for our primary sector, because it focuses on a major sector of the economy being a price taker rather than a price maker, and because it increases this drive towards a less resilient, more intensive dairy sector, which is very vulnerable to changes in world commodity prices. So what we've seen is farmers go chasing after those boom prices, and to do that they've piled on land, they've got more cows, they've piled on debt, they've got more irrigation, and that's meaning now when these prices are slumped, that the rural communities are hurting hard. And yet what does the Minister of Finance say? What did he say in the House today? All he can say is that dairy-intensive provinces have to adapt quickly to market signals, completely overlooking the major hurt that rural communities are feeling and having to make that adjustment. What the Green Party would do would be invest much more in research and development through a big package of tax credits and grants for R&D, so that we look at increasing value in our primary sector, in diversifying, getting away from this reliance on dairy, away from this reliance on China as the major market, and away from Fonterra just thinking that it can continue to increase milk supply regardless of the cost that that has to our waterways and regardless of the unnatural focus that that is creating. Because this government thinks in its economic plan that dairy prices are going to bounce back and everything will be fine. It hasn't got a plan B, Mr Speaker. It seems to think that we can just grin and bear it, wait for those prices to go back up again, but it fails to recognise that there have been some quite significant policy changes internationally, both to the production quotas in the EU and to domestic subsidies in the United States. That means, Mr Speaker, that things may never be the same again for New Zealand dairy prices, and that means that this hurt that we're seeing at the moment is likely to continue. It means major problems for the economy. The Reserve Bank has highlighted that when we've got 20 to 30% of dairy farms so heavily indebted that it's potentially a significant problem for our economic stability, that is a major concern. So the government needs to step up and take some accountability and responsibility. Sure, it can't control export prices, but where it invests money through the budget helps grow sectors or makes them decline. It should be investing much more in added value, and that's not just in new products, but it's making sure that our products have a reputation overseas for coming from a clean, green country, for giving some integrity to that brand, for marketing products which have a provenance, products of integrity. That's not what we're seeing in this budget, when the government is investing more in RM and resource management, yet proposing to gut the RMA, proposing to weaken our regulatory framework, proposing to allow more water pollution by its permissive national policy statement. We need a strong regulatory framework to provide a strong environmental credibility to the products that we are marketing overseas, and we need much more diversification in our primary sector, much more of a focus on value rather than volume, and increasing the products that we market. Thank you.